Okay, so exploratory online seminar number 39, how to use parameter. We want to talk about a couple things. So parameterizing the data, parameterizing chart, and dashboard, SQL query, and then last is the calculation. So let's go one by one. Starting with the data, parameterized data. So I have this data, it's a sales data. Each row represents the order of a product from a given customer. Okay, a typical sort of like sales or order data. And then I filter this data to keep only North America customers. Okay, so the right-hand side in the exploratory, like you can build a bunch of like data wrangling steps, and I have 9 steps. And then the fourth step, I filter the data. And then at the end, I basically created top 100 North American customers based on how much they spent, how much they bought from this company. Okay, and then I publish the data to the exploratory server so that I can share with other folks. Okay, so this is basically I have 3 other guys and girls, and then they access to this data, and then they can download data as a CSV, EDF, or via API. So life is good. Okay, but here's a problem. It turned out everybody wants a different set of the data. So like this whole data is too big, and some folks wants to have like a European data. Some folks wants have like Africa and Asia and so on. However, I filter this data to just North America, and it turned out that's not enough for other folks. So how are we going to do it? And it looks like each member have the different requirements. I simplified this, but usually some people might have like, hey, you know what? Like I want to have the data only for this year, not the last year, or I want to have this data for related to this particular set of products or something like that. So basically, to address this problem, like we can make that data to be more dynamic or more interactive by creating a parameter. We call it parameterizing data. So that's what we want to do. So from here, I think it's probably better to do a kind of doing a demo. So here is like exploratory, and then okay, oops, all right, here you go. And then I have this data frame. And then, like I said, here, the number step 4, that's where I filter this data. And after that, like I, do some calculation and then keeping only the top 100 customers and then so on. And then like here's a publish button. And then like, this is a step. I publish the data. That means all the data up to this point, latest data at this point being published, right? And when I go back to step 4, and it looks like here that market equal USCA, US and Canada, which means North America. And that is something that like I like to parameterize instead of like a hard coding at the USCA. Okay, so how we do it? So here is a parameter check button or like a radio button. Click on it, and then you see this create the parameter button, and then I can click on this one. And then here's a brand new sort of like a parameter configuration window. Looks like there's one parameter being created already, but I want to create a new one. And so create a new parameter. And I want to call it like market. And then you can't have like a space or a special character as a parameter name. But if you want to show the parameter to your users or other folks, then you can use this display as. This is where like you can have like a space or special character or whatever you like to use. Okay, so the data type this time, this is a character. It's not a number or date or anything like that. So I'm going to keep it as is. And the input type, text input means your users have to type, like for example, NACA or something like that. Or you can provide a list as a list of values. So let's select this like a list of values, single select. And here you can start typing manually, creating like 3 or 4 or 5. But most of the time, like you want to actually get those values dynamically from the data, right? So in that case, you want to select to get values from data frame. then you can select any data frame you have in the project. In this case, I want to use this exact same, same data frame that I'm using, which is this top 100 customer underscore one. So I'm going to select that. And then you can select the step, which means you can basically reference to this data at the source step, or this step, or like at the last step. Any step you can choose, because each step has a different data, right? Because I'm transferring or cleaning up the data on the right hand side. So that's important which step I need to select. Last step is kind of a dynamic. If you start adding more steps later on, it will always reference that very last step. In this case, what I want to do is I'm going to select the left join, which is like one step before the filter step. I can select the filter step as well, by the way, but I don't want to select the same step. I want to just make sure up to right before I filter the data, because otherwise it's kind of like a self-referencing, and then like I get only the same value. So I select the left join, number 3, and then the value from, basically like I want to select a column. I'm creating a market parameter, so of course I want to select the market column. And then there's a value and the display name. And if you have, let's say, like kind of like sometimes having a country code and country name, you have the 2 different columns, and then you want to use a country code as the value, and then display name, you want to say the country name or something, then you can check this checkbox as a display column. In this case, I'm going to use the same thing because it's more like user-friendly name as a data anyway. So here, and then like I can select the default value. That's like, maybe like USCA or Africa or whatever that could be. Okay, so here's one thing though. If this one, like the user have to select at least one value, right? For example, like USCA or Europe or something like that. But sometimes you might want to select multiple values, like let's say USCA and Asia. Or sometimes you don't want to select anything, and you want to just return all the data, including all these 5 values. So in that case, instead of like limiting to the single select, you want to select this multi-select. Okay, and then here, notice this set all values when no values. This is a typo. It's supposed to be selected. So if the user didn't select any value, then that will be considered as selecting all values. So you can do that. We did that, and then now it's up to me. It's selecting just like a default, or maybe like not selecting a default value, because then like I can return all the values. So either way, and then at this point, I'm going to click on the save button to save this parameter configuration and close it. And then in this filter dialog where we started from, I can select the parameter, but the parameter is not listed up here. That is because this operator equal to has, the parameter for the equal to operator has to be the single select or text input. I created a parameter as a multi-select, right? A multiple value select. That means I need to change the operator to be is in. So then this filter allows you to enter multiple values. So I'm going to select this is in multiple values. Then I see like the parameter that I created called market listed here. And I'm going to just click on run button. And then looks like the data is, I get like pretty much the same data. I see like market, Europe, Asia, USCA, and so on. So nothing changed at this point. And here, right-hand side top, this is a parameter button. I can click on this button to open the parameter pane. And then here's a list of values for that market. Like you see, like a default is all, it says all because I didn't select anything. But from here, like let's say like if I select USCA and I get that only USCA data. The auto run is check. That's why like every time like I select something, automatically it runs. But sometimes when you're dealing with a kind of like a bigger size of data, involves heavy, lifting, calculation or something like that, you might want to disable this auto run. Then you can sort of like manually, explicitly click on this run button when you're ready to run the data wrangling step. Okay. So that is that. And then what I can do here is when I go to the select columns, right? And then I can click on this publish button. So, and then to republish it, the same data that I have published before, and I can click on, if I click on this one, so this is the data, right? So that I have published to the Exploratory server. And then right now, this data doesn't have any parameter button because it didn't have it when I published it before. But now, if I click on this one to republish it, notice that this data has this parameter step, right? So if I go here and just refresh this page, then now I see this parameter button right here at the right-hand side top. If I click on it, and the parameter pane shows up. And then here, like I need to, or you need to turn this on so that it becomes so-called interactive mode, then the parameter gets enabled. And what this is really doing is because the parameter is using the filter step, which happens to be not requiring the R, which is like a kind of like a backside engine with the exploratory to using that environment. So by clicking on turning this on, then it creates sort of like our instance. R is a programming language, but or the data science kind of like a framework, by the way. So it just enabled that instance behind the scene. So now that you have that R running at this server, exported.io, and then you can do all sorts of things by taking advantage of the power of R. But anyway, so now I can select the market. For example, like if I want to do like just USCA, notes here, market, and if I click on run button, and then this is gonna do the filter at the server, and I see only the market. And then if I, for example, like select that to the Asia Pacific and I click run button, then I get only the Asia Pacific. And then I can share this one with other folks. So let's say I have invited this guy, and then like, I can set, hey, this person can only view or can use parameter. I can do that setting as well. And then this, I happen to have given this you can use parameter privilege, so this person also can use this parameter as well. And then that person can click on this download button to select, in this case, only the Asia Pacific data. Okay, so that's very basic of the parameter, how you can use the parameter. However, the parameter is not only for data. It can be used for chart, dashboard, and other stuff. So let's take a look at the chart. So here I have the data, and it's very similar. Like I have filtered the data to by using the market parameter, right? And then this one too. Let's do the demo here. I'm going to just move to a different data frame. No, same data frame. Sorry. And then let's go to the chart section. No, different data frame is fine. Sorry about that. Okay, here. Okay, and I have created this chart, and this one is basically showing the sales amount by the product subcategory. Okay. And then, like you see, this chart is actually pinned to the step 2. This is a filter step, right? So like the data we are seeing in this chart is coming from the second step, right? This data. Okay. And then when I click on this, this one is hard coding at the USCA. I want to do the same thing. I want to parameterize this thing, this filter. So click on the parameters and then select the market because I already created this parameter. So it's selected it. Now, like if I click on this parameter pane, that market parameter shows up, right? So that part is fine. So this now like I can interactively work with this chart. So like if I want to see only the USCA, or I want to see maybe like Asia Pacific, so on, then like this data is dynamically updated. Okay, so now I created another chart here. So this one is basically looking at the sales trend over the 4 years period. And then, oops, I'm gonna just this. Okay, and it is showing like Africa, Asia Pacific, Europe, and so on, right, by the color. Okay, and this one though, notice that this pin button is pinned to the step 1, not the step 2. So data hasn't filtered any market or anything like that. And if I click on this parameter button here, nothing shows up because we don't need a parameter because parameter is used in the step 2. But this chart is pointing to or referencing to the step 1. So that's why. So when you click on the parameter button, it will show only the parameters that are required to generate the data for the chart, for example, that you're looking at. Okay, so now, oh, yeah, I think that, so that's the basic how it works. Now from here, not just chart, let's move on to like a dashboard. So let's pretend like I create the dashboard. So let's do that actually. So sales dashboard, right? Okay, and then like I want to insert those two charts that we have looked at. So we'll go to global sales, and I'm going to select this first chart, and then like I want to add another chart. So click on this chart button right hand side, and then select this second chart, and click OK. So now I have two charts, right? And then click on Run button. So it's nothing special, super basic. I just inserted two charts. Okay. So you remember to generate this chart. This chart was pointing to the step 2 that's being parameterized. The chart right hand side hasn't been using any parameter at this point, right? So if I see this parameter button, because one of the charts in this dashboard has to use the parameter, that's why like you see this parameter button. If you don't see this parameter button, that means any of the charts are actually using the parameter. So if I click on this parameter button, the parameter pane shows up, and then the market parameter, that's exact the same one like we saw when we are interacting with the chart on the left hand side. And then now if I change this, I'm gonna just uncheck this auto run button. And then if I change this, remove this Asia Pacific, and then I was selecting only USCA or North America, and then click run button, what's going to happen is it has an impact. It affects the data on the left side because the left side of the chart is using that filter step being parameterized. But right hand side, this chart, of course, it's not going to get updated. It's still showing the exact same thing. In fact, it is, you see those 5 markets. Okay, so you can basically control, which charts to use the parameter, which charts not use the parameter by pointing the different step. That's one thing. Another thing you could do is right-hand side chart. You know what? Like I want to actually create the category parameters to make this right-hand side chart to be more dynamic or interactive, so the user can pick and choose which category of the data to show for their sales trend. Okay, so the right-hand side chart I'm talking about. So what I'm saying is basically this chart, going back to the original chart, and I want to parameterize this chart. Okay, but instead of creating another filter and then parameterize it, because if I do it, then this bar chart also gets updated. But I don't want to do that. That bar chart always should show all the categories, but only this chart that I want to parameterize. In that case, you can use this filter inside the chart. We call it chart filter. So let's create a filter, and then what I'm saying is here is a category column, and then this is equal to or multiple values. And then I can select, for example, let's say like a furniture or something. And if I click on it, now like what we are looking at here is the furniture data, and then like basically the sales trend by the market. And then like, I want to actually parameterize this filter so that my other teammates can interact with this chart inside the dashboard. So then the way I can do is click on this parameter button, and then select the parameters from this list. And like you saw, like I've already created this category parameter, so I'm going to just select on it. Okay, and then click Run button. And then what happens when I click on this parameter button, right-hand side top, and then guess what this is gonna show? Because remember, market parameter is not used for this chart, so we shouldn't see market parameter. But this category parameter we should see because that's used for generating this data. So let's click on this parameter button, and here it goes. We see only the category parameter here. And then like I can just select this different thing. I'm going to disable auto run, and then, for example, take off the office supplies. Now I'm selecting only technology for the category, and I click run button, and then this is the category. Sorry, technology sales data. Okay, and then now at this point, let's go back to the dashboard, right? And then so now we know right-hand side chart is using category parameter, left-hand side chart is using market parameter. And if I click on this parameter button, now we see market and category parameter automatically shows up or being added. Okay, and then if I click on this, for example, category, like a configure parameter, and then I can do some setting here. And like you see, I manually enter this technology financial office supplies, but I didn't have to. If I wanted to use a data frame, I could have done that as well. Okay, and another thing is by clicking on this layout, then you can change the order. I want to show like a category first or the market later, or you can actually hide the parameter. Sometimes this one, you might want to use some kind of like a hidden parameter that you want to use the parameter, but you don't want to expose to, other folks. So that's sometimes you might want to consider using it, but most of the time, like you want to show it. That's the whole point, right? So, so now like I have like parameters and then the dashboard being parameterized. Then if I like, I can click on publish and publish to the Exploratory server. Then like my teammate can interact with this dashboard. Okay, so that's the parameterizing the dashboard. Okay. Just to recap, okay, excuse me for this Japanese text in the dashboard image, but just to recap, I can publish this dashboard to the Exploratory server, and then other folks can interact with this dashboard, right? So by selecting the parameter values or changing the, maybe slider or something like that. But this, by using these parameters, the thing I think is really cool is it's very flexible to configure the dashboard by the parameters. What I mean by that is, let's say like we have three parameters on the right-hand side, and I can create one parameter to affect all the charts, right? And then that's because usually like I parameterize one of the steps, typically the filter step, then any charts that reference to the step or any steps after the filter step will be impacted by the change of this parameter, change in value of this parameter. But also, like we saw, particular chart, I want to create, the particular setting, then I can do that. And so like, for example, this return parameter impacts only this particular chart. And also, I haven't done this one today, but when you go to analytics view, you could create analytics, right? Like let's say like time series forecasting is a profit. Left-hand side chart, down bottom chart is a forecasting chart, right? And then we can create the analytics filter, basically the same thing as the chart filter. And then, in this case, a subcategory. And then this filter impacts only that particular analytics filter. So that means that, this purple color chart, when I change the region, and then that data in that chart will be automatically generated. When I change the subcategory purple parameter, then that chart also gets automatically populated. So, and then that's cool. What's cool is like based on the selection, the time series forecasting model being recreated and then do the forecasting job for us. So if I publish this one, then my teammates don't really have to understand, don't know the nitty gritty of the forecasting stuff, but they can actually change the setting or change the data to get their data being forecasted. Okay, so And then all you need to do is create those parameters at the data wrangling step, which is the right-hand side when you have the data frame open, or you you use a chart filter or analytics filter, and then that's the only thing you want to do. Then after that, like when you go to the chart, dashboard in this case, or you could use even like a note or slide, and then whatever the parameters been that are necessary or are required to generate whatever the data included in the dashboard or note or slide will be populated automatically. So it just works. Okay, good. All right, so the next topic is SQL, parameterized SQL. Um, so I have published the data, and then we saw that like how to parameterize the data. Once I parameterize the data, like everyone can see their own interest in data. So that part is cool. But this one though, the whole filtering process is actually happening inside Exploratory, right? So that means you need to, if you, for example, getting the original data from the database, you need to get all the data to the Exploratory first. Then, what I mean is like, for example, the market, North America, European, African, Asian, all the data you have to bring into the Exploratory. Then each user can select, hey, like I want to have the market, European market data. Then they can change it. But that filtering process is actually happening inside Exploratory. That is fine too, but sometimes in instead of getting all the data into the exploratory and then do the heavy sort of like a filtering work, or not, not just filtering, any, other calculation and all the stuff in exploratory, why don't we just do that filtering stuff in that database? And that is the beauty of the SQL. SQL, as you know, or as some of you know, you can actually create the conditions inside a SQL query. So that means you don't have to bring all the data to the exploratory. You can bring only the subset of the data based on your interest to the exploratory. And this parameter thing not only works in the exploratory, but also works in a SQL query as well. So that's something that like I like to share with you today. This one too, let's do the demo. Okay, so here I have created this data frame. Let's take a look at that. So this is basically the same data that we have been seeing, the sales data. And then right-hand side, there's not much data wrangling going on here, but all I did was basically writing a SQL query and then reorder the columns. That's it. But when I click on this thing and then it opens, this one is going against the MariaDB or MySQL, whatever you want to call it. And then here's a SQL query, right? Okay. And then using no, here's a condition. So category in technology or furniture. And then the order date is any date greater than 2012 0101 or January 1st. And I want this data to be published. And then I want other folks to be able to adjust these conditions instead of me hard coding this. Okay, so that's what we want to do here. So there's a parameter button right here. And then right now, if I click it, there's no parameter showing up because we don't need a parameter to run this SQL query. But we want to, let's start with this category. We want to parameterize this particular piece. So click on the set parameter button, right-hand side top. And then again, it will open that same parameter config dialog. And I want to create, and this time the category. By the way, I already have the category. That's good news. So let's use that same parameter I've created. Note though, sometimes you might want to run another SQL query to get that list of values, or you want to, maybe like a reference to another, like a different data set to get that value, because here I have hard coded, I have manually entered these values. So in that case, you want to create another data frame by writing a SQL query for particular, in this case, a category, just to get that category values. And then use that data frame as the kind of a reference data frame to populate these values. So that's what you can do as well. In this case, I have already created this one, so I'm going to use this one. So in that case, all I need to do is just update this SQL query. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to just remove this technology furniture because I want to replace these with the parameter. To use parameter inside SQL query and also the calculation that I'm going to show you in a minute, you want to type @mark, and the @mark will suggest you whatever the parameters being available. So in this case, I'm going to use category parameter. And then let's see like how this is going to happen. I've added the parameters, but still right-hand side, no parameter showing up. So I'm going to click on this refresh parameter button. And then now, whatever the parameters being used in SQL query will automatically show up. And then now, like I see technology, office supply, furniture. So let's say like just to take a look at just technology, and then click run button. And then now this query should be updated, this SQL query with, like it says technology inside. And that means I should be getting only the technology value. If I change this one to, let's say, like a furniture or something, and I should be getting only the furniture data. Okay, so that looks okay. So, and the next one, I want to parameterize this one too, all that date as well. So now like I want to create another parameter, like kind of a date type parameter. So let's do that. So click on the set parameter button, and then I can create a new parameter, and then let's call it like a from or something. And then display as, I can use the same name as a parameter name. So here's the thing. So this right here, category, that's the display name. And then this one inside @mark, and then like kind of wavy bracket, that's the name of the parameter. So that's why you cannot use a space or special character right here, but you can use it for the display name for this one. So they happen to be the same category, so it doesn't matter. And then again, here, the from, it doesn't really matter. But if I want to type something like from date or something like that, then I can type that here as well. Let's keep that for this time. And then the data type, I'm going to use a date because this data is, I know that it's like a date type. And then here, minimum value and a max value. And then default values. So it is date. Okay. And then this one, I want to actually select that like a specific date as the default value. And then let's say, maybe this is I know this data is ranging from 2012 to 2015. It's kind of old data. So what I want to do, where is that? I think here, 2012. So there you go. And then it's January 1st. Okay, so 2012, January 1st, that's the default value. And then I'm gonna keep other place kind of like by default. And then click on the save button. Now I have a from parameter and ready to go. So let's use it. In order to use it, basically like if I just remove this and again, type the @mark, and then now like I can select from the list, this time the from parameter, and then same thing, I'm gonna just refresh this one, refresh parameter, and then here it goes, from date parameter shows up now. And then like if I say, you know what, I don't have to be the 2000, it doesn't have to be 2012, that I wanna see only 2014 data, then I can select it from here. And basically the same date picker shows up. And then I want to change the year. So instead of 2020, 12, I want to select the 2014 and looks okay. It is okay. Yeah, I hope this is the one. Oh yeah, this is 2014, January 1st. And then click run button. And then the order date should be only 2014 or 2015. So now I have replaced two conditions with parameters. And then now sort of like this parameter is being parameterized, or now it's being kind of dynamically generated, and it looks okay. And then if I click on the update button, now basically run the query, get the data, and then import in a Exploratory. So at this point, if I like, I can just go to the publish, And then let's say this is like a sales data from MySQL, and then publish in the private mode so that I can, me or other folks I explicitly invite can see. And then maybe CSV download is okay. And then I'm gonna just publish it. So this one though, it's pretty cool. It's not only the data, but also publish the connection information. So that means if I go open this one, and then I can actually schedule it. And when it's scheduled, I mean, let's say like every 6 o'clock in the morning or something like that. Let's, oops. And at that point, what's going on here? Yeah, every day. Then it will use that connection information to go directly against the database and then get that latest data. So that's yeah, we can do. But scheduling is not today's subject. What we are interested in is parameter. And the parameter is also the same. If I turn on this parameter, and then now it will, if I update this category from the parameter, then it will use the same connection information to go directly against the database and then run the updated SQL query and get the new data set. So if I, for example, select this technology, let's say like I want to select only the technology, and then I want to select only, let's say like a 2015 data, it looks okay. And then click run button, and then now it goes against the database, and then now like I see only 2015 data return. Okay, so now we have parameterized SQL query. So that's it for the SQL query. It's working okay, looks like. Okay, so today's last topic, which is the parameterized calculation. Okay, so let's take a look. Okay, so I have published this chart, and this chart shows the ratio of orders from the repeated purchase customers. So what that means? So what is repeated customers? You know, like if you're dealing with the sales data, order data, and you care is like, this customer is like a first time order, and or this is like a repeated, orders. I mean, for them is like a second time or third time or something like that. And then like let's say like you want to understand, like, hey, these are the orders from new customers, meaning that's their first time, or these are the orders from the second time or third time or fourth time, and so all the subsequent orders. So I created this chart and see how many of the orders are actually coming from this, repeated customers. Okay, so, and of course, like any business, you want to see this blue to be kind of growing because, like you want to increase the new customers, but at the same time, you want them to come back, right? So, so that's a chart I created. Well, then, I shared it with other folks, and then turned out everybody has a different idea about this repeat customers or repeated customers. Someone said, hey, this is like a more than twice purchase or orders, that's repeated customers. But someone said, hey, once or twice, that's actually doesn't count. It has to be like at least 3 times. And another guy was saying like it's at least 4 times or something like that. So it seems like, there's different definition. And I don't want to get involved into like, what is a repeated customers, that kind of stuff. That's a waste of my time. So I want to parameterize that definition itself, or another word is the calculation itself. I'm using calculation to create that what is a repeat or not. And again, this one too, I'm gonna use the exploratory here. Where is that? So, oh yeah, so this one. Perfect. So this data at this point, let me just explain quickly. So this like each row is now each customer. I actually created this unique row step. So, and then basically I use the order date and the customer to be unique. So that means each row is basically represent each order, but also unique order. So like a customer sometimes does the order like a couple times a day, but now like here is like I just selected one of those those orders. So this, for example, Magdalene Morse person, like purchase particular product on this day, kind of information. So from here, what I actually did was I create a group. I just group by this data frame by the customer or customer ID. So for example, this first person, this Alex, this like a customer ID, even though same name, but it turned out the customer ID is different. So we consider them as the different customers. And then this person purchased the order twice, right? So first time and the second time. First time in 2014, second time 2015. And let's look at this like a red color. This is more like easier. So whatever AA10375140. Okay. So this person purchased like 4 times, order 4 times, right? So this is definitely like repeat customers. But if you look at this yellow color right here, this person order only once. So we don't consider this the order from the repeat customer. This is the order from the new customer. Okay, so how we can actually create those labels that identify each row or each row is this repeat from the repeat customer or the new customer. So that's what I'm doing here at the very end. This is like a step 7. Let's go one by one. So the first one, what I'm doing is basically using row number, and the row number basically returns the row number. But because I have grouped this data, so that means within each customer, then it will give me this like a first, first row, second row, which means basically the same thing. Is this a first order for this customer, second order for this customer, that kind of stuff. So that this function will return that position or sort of like index number for each customer. It looks like kind of number is got broken, so I'm going to just run again. Okay. So now the nth order, this is 1, 2, and then the green customer is 1, 2, and then the yellow is just 1, orange is 1, and the red is 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on. Once you get this number, and then now it's actually easy because just looking at by looking at this number, then you can consider, hey, this first order is like this is not repeat order. Second number is a repeat order, and so on, right? And that is basically exactly what I'm doing here on the repeat order step. And I'm looking at this nth order column, and if that number is greater than 2, then I consider is a return true, and then otherwise false. And it's kind of funny because you can just type in the condition itself, and it will return true if that condition matches or not. Okay, so and then when I go to the chart, all I did was basically repeat order column. I assigned the color, and then y-axis I assign a number of rows, but also I use percent of total, so that like basically each bar is I'm looking at the percent of the true for each bar, or in this case, each month. Okay, so that was a kind of a lot of my explanation, but a very key thing here is here, this like a repeat order, that is that basically this is the definition of if this order is from a repeat customer or not repeat customers. And I don't want to get into the argument of like 2 or 3 or 4 kind of stuff, so I want to parameterize this. Okay, so now it says 2. So instead, I want to create a parameter, but I haven't created a numeric parameter yet. So what I can do is click on this parameter button, and then click any of the this configure parameter icon. Or if you don't have any parameter yet, then you can always access the parameter from here, from the project menu. And then this will open that parameter dialog. And then like I want to create a new parameter, and then this time like a repeat criteria. And then again, I can't use a space, so I have to use maybe like underscore or something like that. But we can use display as, and then this is like a repeat criteria. criteria, just with including space. And this time, like I want to use a number data type. And the input type, then like user have to manually type in the number, or I want to provide a slider, and then I can set like 1 to 10 mean value and max value, or I can just use that value dynamically return. So I'm going to use the same thing and same data frame. This is which data frame are we using? Global sales. And then this is like a last step, which is like a step 8. Any step I can select, or like a last step, or whatever. In this case, I'm going to just select the ungroup. And the value column is the NS order. I don't know why. Did you see like a repeated this product bag? But anyway, so the NS order, that's the column. And then I can select what's the default value. Let's change the default value to be 2. Step size, I think like 1 step is fine. And then click Save button, and that's it. That now I have the number parameter. Then go back to the calculation, and then I'm gonna replace this to with a parameter. And the type at mark is basically the same thing we did in the SQL. And then this time I wanna use this repeat criteria. Okay, and then click on Run button. The default's 2, so we are seeing basically the same result. But if I go to this parameter, open the parameter, and then now I can change this to be like, let's say like how about like a 4 or something. And obviously now that percent of true become much smaller. And that's because we made a definition to be more like a restrict to be repeated orders. Okay, so now I have used I have parameterized calculation, and then what I can do is, for example, I can just publish it. Let's say click on the publish button, and then republish it. And then once it's published, I'm gonna open it, and then now I see the parameter button right here. And the same thing, if I turn on the interactive mode or the parameter mode, and then now it creates our instance behind the scene, then like I can start changing this parameter values. Not only me, and then the whole point is whatever whoever the people I shared with can change these parameters and then get that data that they like to get. Okay, so that's the how to parameterize the calculation. Okay, and that's it for today.